Coming up next here on KSMU, Making Democracy Work. This weekly program is produced in cooperation with the League of Women Voters of Southwest Missouri. Your host for today's program is Leslie Carrier.
Good morning, and our guest today is David Burton. David is a Civic Communication Specialist with the University of Missouri Extension Service here in Greene County. And welcome. We're glad to have you here today,
Good morning.
David.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Most people probably know about the Extension Service through local 4-H programs, but I know that that's only a small, very small portion of all the programs and services that are offered. So tell us a little bit about the different types of programs that are available through the local Extension Service.
You are correct. When people hear Extension, they often do think of 4-H. It's been such a successful program. But Master Gardeners, that's a very active program in the area, and that's something that is Extension-driven. And there's other maybe lesser-known programs. There's Show Me Select, which is sort of a program that helps livestock owners get more money out of their products. And there's just a number of those named programs. The Family Nutrition Education Program. If you have a child in school who's getting nutrition education, it's through the University of Missouri Extension Program. But we have specialists here in Greene County that deal with issues related to horticulture and agriculture and human development and health education, housing issues, environmental issues. So lots of training and program opportunities beyond just 4-H.
How did the Extension Service first begin, and what was the impetus for the federal government to set up such a program through the state university systems?
It's been a long history, and so I'll kind of throw out some dates and give you a little background. It was the Morrill Act in 1862 that set up the University of Missouri. They set aside federal lands, and that made the university a federal land-grant university. And part of the deal was you get these federal monies, but you've got to take your education programs outside of the university walls. And so that started in 1862. It was in 1887 that the federal government set up experiment stations, which is also an extension program. There's one in Mount Vernon, for example, these experiment research farms. And then in 1914, it was the Smith-Lever Act that set up the Extension Service. So those federal acts have brought it about. Missouri state legislature got involved in 1955. They passed a law requiring each county to have a locally elected extension council. So that extension council sort of plans the programs that we do locally. So that's kind of the laws that put in place to make it happen. The whole philosophy behind that was that not everyone can go to college. Not everyone can afford to go to college or has access to it. So the college needs to get those programs outside of their walls, out to those who maybe can't afford it or can't get there for other reasons.
How is the extension program funded? I know probably most of the portion of that funding comes from the state university system, but what portion also comes from local county funding or even participant fees?
Our funding is a complicated mix, and it's just because it's developed that way over a number of years. Faculty positions like myself, we are funded by state taxes through the University of Missouri. The extension budget is 1/3 state tax dollars, 1/3 federal tax dollars, and 1/3 revenue that we generate. And then every county also has a local county office, which is funded by the county. Those county monies pay for our telephone and copies and things that are necessary to keep an office open and a secretary, but they don't pay for the specialist positions. Now, Greene County, for example, recently we took a 72% cut in our budget from the county commission. Greene County is the exception in that we had a reserve fund. Most counties do not have a reserve fund. They're extension programs, so they would be closed. We're operating off of our reserve fund right now.
Well, going along that line with these recent budget cuts, how does that affect your local office and the services that you're able to provide? Are you having to cut back on those services or increase the fees that you charge participants?
Both of those things, and then finding sort of new ways to provide programs, too. It's been a mixed bag. I mean, we had this recent cut from the county, which impacts us because we want to keep that county office open so we can keep specialists and programs here in Greene County. Without that county office, we can't. But we've really been dealing with cuts at the state level for 5 or 6 years. There's been state withholdings and different things over the years, so we haven't added programs. We've had hiring freezes pretty much for 6 years. We've been putting a little more emphasis on generating revenues, on charging for programs that we didn't used to charge for or charging more, finding new ways to deliver programs that cost less, doing more things online or electronically or providing materials only online if you attend the class, but anything to kind of cut cost or increase revenue.
I'm sure most people think of Extension through agronomy and the agriculture programs that are offered. And some of those programs are administered as an actual requirement of certain federal programs, such as the USDA. So at what point does the Extension Service step in to help provide these programs that maybe other agencies can't provide?
Well, there are a lot of those examples, and really it's almost case by case of county or a federal agency might have some educational training they need to do, and they maybe have staff to get people there, but they don't have the specialist to do the actual training itself. When they call on us to do that sort of training, sort of like a supply teacher almost, that's part of our role. There's programs within the USDA that they have funds for, but they're not able to do the training, or they're not able to do the field checking or the inspections, and that's also where we step in, where our agronomy specialists step in. We're sort of the feet and the fingers for them out into the community lots of times. We see that happen a lot over and over. And even with programs like WIC, federal program, people who get WIC benefits do have to attend educational programs and nutrition training, and that's all done by the University of Missouri Extension, those trainings.
I know that probably most people, again, think of Extension with more rural application, but a lot of the programs and services have begun to be offered to more of an urban audience. What are some of those programs that are offered to more of an urban audience that the general person might not be aware of?
Well, you're right. Agriculture is sort of our history, so people think of that first, but the urban programs, even some of these ag programs, have urban applications. There's a lot of renewed interest in canning, for example, community gardening. Those are ag programs, but they do have urban applications. But then we also have other programs. We do public issue forums. We do training for law enforcement and fire departments. That's an urban application. We do lots of after-school programs in urban settings. We do supply teachers. For example, I teach some classes here at MSU through the TRIO program. We do a lot of the trainings for OCAC, and that's almost always in an urban setting. And we do a lot of work with community groups, both educational classes they need done or helping in their planning. Those all have urban applications too. And then there's, we have an urban 4-H club in Springfield now, for example. So lots of applications.
How does the Extension Service help to educate citizens on job issues and even perhaps how to start a business?
There are, around the state of Missouri, what are called small business technology and development centers. In fact, there's one here on the campus of MSU. MSU provides the space or the in-kind support for that program. Extension, with a grant, provides the funding that keeps that open. And then some of our field faculty interact with them, and they do low-cost or no-cost trainings for people wanting to start programs or start their own businesses or keep a business going.
And finally, how can listeners find out more information on the programs and services that are offered through the University of Missouri Extension Service?
Wow, lots of ways. You can call our office at 862-9284, or you can go online, look for Greene County Extension, or you can find us on Facebook or YouTube, or we have a news service that we'll send to you by email if you'll check out our website.
Great. Thank you, David. Our guest today has been David Burton, who is the Civic Communication Specialist with the University of Missouri Extension Service. This program and others are available on the web at ksmu.org. Click on the link for Making Democracy Work.